Meet the world's most sought-after hitman. But what sets him apart? He's being pursued by none other than the very clients who seek his deadly services. His motive? To eradicate murder itself from the world. But when he crosses paths with the woman of his dreams, their love story takes a perilous turn. She struggles to rescue her reformed lover from his dark past, which has come back to haunt him. Hey guys, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're looking into the 2015 movie titled Mr. Right. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. The movie begins as a young eccentric lady named Martha sits and waits for her boyfriend to return, after preparing a surprise dinner for him. Moments later, Martha's boyfriend Jeff barges in while making out with another lady, and Martha watches them in shock. When Martha confronts him about it, she realizes he doesn't seem remorseful as he blames her for being a boring girlfriend, even suggesting that she joins them for a threesome. Martha rejects his offer and angrily walks out on him. However, as Jeff tries to convince her to reconsider, she throws a bottle of wine at him. Meanwhile, we also meet a hitman named Francis Munch arriving at a hotel. Francis is an ex-CIA agent and mercenary with a very sophisticated set of skills capable of killing anyone he sets his mind on, making him one of the most feared hitman. Here, Francis meets a woman who had hired him through a fixer to kill her husband. After revealing who he is, Francis puts on his signature clownish red nose and proceeds to shoot her dead. He believes that by doing this, he'll be able to put an end to the vicious cycle of murder. Meanwhile, a team of assassins led by Hopper, a hitman who used to work with Francis when he was in the CIA, prepares to attack him. However, after seeing how much these guys underestimate Francis, Hopper decides to stay behind in the surveillance van. Knowing that they will all eventually die at his hands, as anticipated, Hopper watches from the van as Francis kills the assassins one by one using his exceptional shooting and fighting skills. Moments later, Francis knocks out the last assassin, and Hopper realizes it's game over. Afterward, Hopper receives a voice message from his boss, instructing him to fake being an FBI agent Knox and partner up with a local police detective named Gus Patrick, who had also been assigned to capture Francis. Meanwhile, Martha, who is still hurting from her earlier heartbreak, suggests to her roommate Sophie and her friend Julia that they should go out for fun in an attempt to distract herself. After getting drunk and dancing weirdly at the club, Martha still finds it hard to let go. While leaving the club, she blames herself for everything and soon begins to send random texts to Jeff. However, Sophie stops her and also comforts her, suggesting that Martha comes with her to work the next day. Sophie works at a pet store and Martha sees this as another opportunity to bond with the animals. At the store, Martha picks up a ferocious cat despite Sophie warning her not to. Subsequently, the cat ends up scratching them and Sophie angrily sends Martha home. However, Martha goes to a convenience store on her way home, and this is where she bumps into Francis, who is also shopping for some supplies, causing a pile of contraceptives to fall off the shelf. To Martha's surprise, Francis quickly catches them all, leaving her awestruck, and she begins to instantly fall in love with him. Francis suggests that they go on a date immediately, and even though Martha finds it weird, she agrees to it. Soon they both begin to hang out, and after chatting for a while, Francis realizes that he's drawn to her quirky behavior, and the two emotionally connect, spending romantic moments together. However, as they continue to talk, Francis reveals to Martha that he is a hitman, but Martha takes it as sarcasm, because what kind of hitman would reveal his line of work on the first date? Besides, she thinks hitmen only exist in movies. Afterward, Francis notices a sniper watching him, and he stylishly dances with Martha to dodge the bullet, and Martha doesn't even realize that they are being watched. Later that night, the two end up kissing, and soon spending the night together at Martha's place. The next day, Martha finds a note Francis had left for her. In the note, Francis promises to spend the evening with her, and she reads it with a smile on her face, showing how much she loves him already. However, Sophie is a bit skeptical about Martha's new mystery boyfriend, and she even becomes shocked when she realizes that Martha doesn't even know his name yet. Meanwhile, Hopper and Gus begin to track Francis as he walks down the street. Gus suggests that they immediately call in a SWAT team and grab him, and Hopper reveals to him that there will be too many casualties if they do that, stating how dangerous Francis is. Afterward, Hopper receives a call from Espinosa, the leader of the assassin gang Francis killed earlier. Espinosa threatens to kill Francis by himself, even though Hopper warns him not to. Later that night, Martha meets with Francis, and while trying to make an order, Francis notices Espinosa staring at him, and he quickly excuses himself to go meet with him. Outside the bar, Francis tells Espinosa that he's on a date, stating that he's not in the mood to kill anyone today. Regardless, vengeful Espinosa pulls out his gun, but Francis quickly disarms him and attempts to walk away. However, Francis changes his mind after hearing Espinosa threaten to kill Martha. With this, Espinosa pulls out a knife and the two soon begin to fight. However, Francis effortlessly beats Espinosa and ends up killing him by sending the knife through his throat. Afterward, Francis returns to continue his date with Martha, revealing to her that he just finished killing a guy, but once again, Martha believes he's just being sarcastic. Meanwhile, in another story, Richie Cardigan, a temperamental gang boss, learns about the death of Paco, who happens to be one of his favorite men from his half-brother Vaughn. However, Vaughn, who is greedy, wants Richie dead at all costs as he aims to take over their family crime empire. To achieve this, Vaughn and his friend Johnny Moon sets up a plan that killed Paco, blaming it on a rival gang leader named Garcia. With this, it'll trigger an attempt to lure Richie into hiring Francis, whom Vaughn already know in his past to kill anyone who hires him. Richie initially refuses to hire anyone to kill Garcia, in order not to escalate the issue, but later agrees to follow Vaughn's persistence. Back at home, Martha curiously asks to know Francis's name. However, Francis refuses to tell her, revealing that he doesn't like his own name, and they both laugh over it. Meanwhile, Martha asks him how he was able to catch the many packs of contraceptives that fell from the shelf when they first met, and Francis decides to teach her one of his many skills. Soon Francis trains her on how to catch and throw knives like a professional assassin, and within minutes, Martha becomes good at it. She initially freaks out, but soon gets thrilled after learning that she's the first person he'd told taught this skill. The next day, Francis brings Martha with him to meet with a guy who'd contacted him for a hitman job, since he wants to make her believe that he is actually a real-life hitman. While waiting in the car, Francis tells Martha the story of when he used to work with the CIA and how he almost died after a friend betrayed him. Moments later, Francis goes to meet with the contractor guy on a bridge and soon learns that the person they want dead is Hector Garcia, a big crime boss. With this, Francis asks the contractor who hired him, but the guy refuses to speak and even threatens to kill Francis. However, Francis casually kills the guy, and Martha watches in shock. It appears that Richie had sent someone else in his place to hire Francis, leaving Vaughn and Johnny Moon disappointed. Francis returns to the car and Martha freaks, realizing that her new boyfriend wasn't joking about being a hitman. Francis tries to convince her that the guy was a bad guy, but she anxiously requests that he drive her home. After Francis drops Martha off, he apologizes to her and tries to convince her that he's killing for the right reasons, but she walks away from him. Later, as Martha sits in her room, she stares in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that what she witnessed was real. After a while, Hopper and Gus, posing as FBI agents, arrive at her home and interview her. Hopper reveals Francis's full name as Francis Munch, describing him as a repentant hitman who kills people who hire him because he now abides by a moral code that says murder is wrong. Hopper then warns Martha that Francis is a very dangerous individual and asks her to contact him if Francis shows up again. At this point, Martha begins to realize that each time Francis told her he killed someone, he meant it. The next day, Martha refuses to pick up Francis's calls and Francis decides to visit her apartment. Meanwhile, Vaughn hires a 10-man team led by a man named Steve to hunt Francis down following Richie's instructions. At the same time, Francis appears behind Hopper, who had been trailing him, and uses a taser to knock him out cold and then drag him inside the house. Afterward, Francis tries to make peace with Martha. At this point, Martha is unsure of who to trust, as both men have told her different stories. But after a bit of thinking, she realizes that Francis has always been honest with her. So she accompanies him to the bedroom, and they start making out. Moments later, Gus spots 12 gang members arrive at the place, and he immediately tries to inform Agent Knox that is Hopper over the radio. Francis immediately realizes that Hopper has faked his identity, and he subsequently reveals to the girls that Hopper is not a real FBI agent. At this point, Martha calls Francis by his name, and he realizes that Hopper must have told her. Francis angrily kicks Hopper's unconscious body and proceeds to escape with Martha. However, Martha, who is now overwhelmed, refuses to go with him, as Sophie reminds her of how dangerous he is. Martha finally agrees to go with Francis after he reassures her of his undying love. However, Francis reveals to Martha that it's going to be tough for them to escape since he's not allowed to kill anyone. Surprisingly, Martha assures him that he's free to kill anyone, and they both get on their way. Soon, Steve's men begin to attack Francis, and he manages to fight off many of them by harming them, leaving Martha impressed. However, Steve shoots at Francis and he ends up sustaining injuries, but Francis is able to hold him at gunpoint, making him surrender his gun and spare his life. At this point, Vaughn arrives with his gang and they immediately begin to shoot at him. Francis and Martha manage to find a hiding spot, and Francis reveals to her that he'll have to kill the guys to escape, and Martha once again gives him approval. Immediately after this, Francis shoots one of the guys dead and proceeds to give a speech, urging the married ones among them to run away. After a while, he devises a means to shoot the rest without killing them, and soon makes Vaughn surrender his weapon. At this time, the cunning Steve returns and strikes Francis from behind, knocking him down while Johnny Moon holds Martha hostage. Following this, they kidnap Martha and then provide an address for Francis to come get her. Shortly after, Hopper arrives at that scene, knocks off Francis's gun, and reveals that it's time to go home. At the same time, Gus arrives at the scene and Hopper turns to kill him. However, Hopper immediately realizes that Francis has escaped. Meanwhile, Vaughn and Johnny Moon appear to have placed Martha in Richie's office as they continue with their plan to get rid of him. In Richie's office, Steve requests to get his payment and leave, but Richie knocks him out with a telephone. Following this, Richie orders everyone to prepare to defend his home as they expect Francis's return. At this point, as Vaughn and Johnny Moon watch Martha, she soon begins to mock them, seeing how scared they already are. In turn, Vaughn taunts Martha and smacks her repeatedly, but she remains unfazed. Moments later, Francis arrives at the house and Steve spots him. However, in a twist, they both end up exchanging pleasantries, and Steve even reveals how Richie had beaten him. After breaking his way into the house, Francis kills most of the mercenaries, but decides to spare Vaughn and Richie's life. Vaughn realizes that his plan to kill his brother is failing, leading him to persuade Francis to kill Richie. However, Francis tells him that his only intention is getting his girl. At this point, Francis realizes the plot, and soon leaves the brothers to sort themselves out as he goes out to look for Martha. Immediately after he leaves, the two brothers rush to grab the gun first and they wrestle for a while. Vaughn manages to shoot Richie dead. As Francis goes to find Martha, he comes across Bruce, Richie's advisor, but also ends up sparing his life afterward. At the same time, Steve also arrives and points his gun at Francis. However, he soon changes his mind, stating that he likes Francis better than the Cardigan brothers. Later, Francis finds the room where Martha is and they both share a kiss. As Francis takes Martha out of the house, he gets knocked down by Hopper and Johnny Moon holds Martha hostage. Johnny Moon soon begins to threaten to kill Martha, and as soon as he pulls out his knife, Martha kills him using the fighting skills Francis had taught her. Soon, she picks up Johnny Moon's call from Vaughn, revealing to him that he's now dead. Afterward, Martha begins to search around the house for Francis, and she soon comes across Vaughn, who threatens to shoot her. However, she once again uses her combat skills to fight him and ends up shooting him to death. On the other hand, Francis and Hopper engage in a fierce fight where Hopper threatens to take Francis to a place where he'll reprogram him to who he used to be. After fighting for a while, Francis and Hopper end up lying on the floor cuffed together, but Francis soon manages to cut himself free. Afterward, Hopper threatens to shoot Francis if he walks away. But to a surprise, Steve, who came back, kills Hopper instead. Grateful, Francis reveals to Steve that Hopper is worth $5 million dead or alive. Hearing this, Steve starts celebrating and the mercenary couple leave happily together. 2 months later, the couple is seen in Vietnam. It appears that they've been traveling across countries having the best time of their lives. However, they soon spot a sniper watching them and Francis grabs Martha's lipstick and writes down in his plate, "Where's the girl?" The sniper reads this and Martha ends up shooting the sniper up close, revealing that she adopted her boyfriend's lifestyle. And this is where our story ends. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.